Hello, everyone. This is Hit and Hustle from irishsportsdaily.com. I am your host, Greg Flamong, and with me is Jamie Ueyama, who is on site in South Bend. He was at the live practice today. They got to see the full send on the Notre Dame practice this afternoon, or I should say this morning. And I guess let's just get right into it. Jamie, I think the question that everyone kind of wants to know: how much is Notre Dame going to beat Ohio State by after viewing the live?
I mean, the real answer is I have no idea because, as you know, it was a non-padded practice today.
You don't say. Wow.
It was a non-padded practice.
Amazing.
They had a scrimmage yesterday, so they gave the media another non-padded practice. It's not like you didn't learn stuff at the practice. There was, obviously, anytime you get a chance to watch them, you get a chance to pick up some stuff. It's always, worth it. But, some guys were wearing shells. The, linemen were wearing shells, but for the most part, it was a non-padded practice. And which means they've only had one padded practice open to the media in the spring and the fall camp combined, and this is the last obviously full one we get. So yeah. I think part of that is purposeful because they don't want Ohio State to learn much of anything. I get it. Makes sense, right? You know what I mean? You're playing a very big game first game. Same time, I do think that we don't know as much as we have in previous years, and so that is it's going to be hard to know, right? I think there's a lot to be excited about, and there was certainly some things that made me excited today to see for Notre Dame football this fall, but there's still like a lot of answers, a lot of questions and without answers.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so before we get into it, just want to thank everyone for joining in who has joined in so far. If you like the show, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps us out. It really helps, grow the show and give us more visibility out there, right? That's what we're looking for. And all right, so was there a particular unit that you paid attention to today, or were you just kind of everywhere?
I was defense. Drew Mentok, who's working with us at Irish Sports Daily. Great to have him as part of the team. He's focused on offense today, and I focus mostly on the defense. I think, and then we didn't see, it wasn't a typical practice like that you would see with pads where, so I mentioned in my practice where there's no inside run. Obviously, you're not going to see it without pads. There's no inside run. There's there wasn't a lot of deep passing. They didn't do wide receiver DB 101s. They did O-line, D-line 101s, but it was an obstructed view for the media. We couldn't see it. So, I just watched 7-on-7. They did plenty of 7-on-7. They did team, they did a couple long, sessions of team, and they did some stuff with the beginning of practice where they were working on some sub-package stuff that I think people will find pretty interesting, and I can get into it a little bit here, but also, please check the practice report that's up on irishsportsdaily.com for more details on that stuff too.
Right. Okay, so let's just let's talk about impressions about the players themselves, just from a physical standpoint, right? So this is, the first time this summer that this summer camp going into the fall that you've gotten to see some of the players. Let's just say defensively, like who stood out to you in terms of their physique or their physical conditioning, the way they moved around? What players kind of popped in that regard?
Clarence Lewis, I think, remember a lot of discussion about him and that 10 extra pounds. He looks fantastic. He looks like a man. Now he put on he might have put all 10 pounds on his quads. Like he looks good physically. Cam Hart, unsurprisingly, looked good physically last year. Looks even better this year. I think defensive back wise, they look good. like impressive. Like there's a lot, and I think Bracey looks more muscular, and so
that was noted in the spring as well.
Yeah, and I think, but you just really are just seeing that he kind of took another step there. I think at linebacker, Prince Colley, I mean, and you haven't heard a lot about him because he's been hurt.
He's been out a little bit,
yeah, and then he only did 7-on-7 stuff today. He looks fantastic. He looks really, really good and was moving around great and made a couple plays in 7-on, running around great. Like he looks great. Jalen Sneed, speaking of guys who take a jump, and some of it I think is he was obviously going to get this physical jump too. That was going to happen. He's put on like 20 pounds basically since he first enrolled. So there's that part of it, but just faster, just twitchier, just you can tell things are happening. Like it's in his head, things are going faster. He's processing things. I think Junior Tuihalamaka, him and Junior Tuihalamaka, like those are two guys that are like, I can't even imagine what they're going to be 2 or 3 years from now. They're already look like dudes, right? And it's been a while since I think Notre Dame had a linebacker, let alone two guys that can't come in and look that way. I think Josh Burnham, you can really see the physical development with him, although he's still got a lot to gain. I would say on offense, a guy who really stood out to me, Andrew Kostovic. I think he's someone who, and I was mentioning this to Drew before practice, was that he's someone who I think when he's done playing football, he's probably going to weigh around 230. You know what I mean? Like he's not a naturally huge guy, so he has to work to put on the weight. Like Blake Fisher's going to be a monstrous dude for his entire life. Like Joe Alt is, even if he gets slim later in life, he might be a slim 265. He's going to be a big dude. And those guys are obviously so impressive, but it's like kind of redundant to say, yeah, those guys look great, right? But like Andrew Kostovic, like I think he put in a lot of work to get bigger. I wouldn't say he is, the fleetest of foot out there, but he definitely, like, you can tell in his upper body, he doesn't look fat. You know what I mean? He looks like he put on weight, like shoulders, arms, like legs. Like he looked like that, that was something that developed there. And I think, you like Chris Tyree too looks thicker in a good way, and Diggs, I think maybe didn't look similar to how he looked last year, but quicker. He looked quicker to me, like twitchier. Those guys kind of stood out for me. And I would say another freshman too, who, everybody's seen the tight end pictures. These guys are big guys, impressive looking guys. And, all the freshmen are too. But Holden Stays, really, I was kind of surprised at seeing him in person. I was like, oh, he looks like a dude. Like, and he moves around well. And I think, there's been a ton of hype about Raritan, and I get it. And I think he's going to be a great, great player. I think like people, if you were sleeping on Holden Stays before, maybe you shouldn't be, just based on kind of like what everything we've heard about him and what we've kind of seen from him so far.
What is your who did he remind you of anybody out there?
Honestly, physically, he kind of reminded me of like a bigger Tommy Tremble, is what he kind of reminded me of.
I knew you were gonna say that. So this is very deep cut. We did I want to say like a signing day show, and I said Tommy Tremble. And you did not agree with that, and I took your word for it. And so I just think
I don't think honestly, I don't think he looked. He's because he's bigger than him, and he's going to be bigger than him.
He seems very long. Like when I see him on like videos and stuff, he seems like a long guy.
So he's bigger. He's bigger than him, but just the way he moves is that part. I think you got spot on, Greg. Like I think that part. I think the way he moves, I think is similar to Tremble. And like, is he going to be like a just straight up nut, like running through people Tommy Tremble? I don't know, Tommy right? Tremble's, but like,
he's an interesting character.
He's a little nuts, right? In a good way. But so I think that's going to be it'll be interesting. But I mean, the tight ends, I will say they look good, and I think something that I was just talking with Matt Freeman about just right before we went on the air here is, man, the defensive backs, and they didn't get tested really that much today. Definitely not deep.
Yeah,
but you can see when they were talking about like, oh, the communication is really good. Like there is like they're really, you can see the fact that all these guys have played, and then you're adding in a Joseph, obviously, who's a playmaker, but just like the confidence you can kind of see with them. And the two freshmen, man, Jaden Mickey and Benjamin Morrison. Benjamin Morrison really looked, I was kind of shocked at how good he looked today.
So I've seen a few pictures of him, and man, he's got the build, and that doesn't always equal anything, right? So, but just like he's got those long legs, it's got like super like high calves and that sort of thing. And for me, that's always like, I don't know,
sprinter,
sprinter guy, like super explosive. I mean, to me, like I every time I saw him like on tape, I thought, man, that looks like Todd Light, just that kind of build. So to hear that, I mean, so you would mention in a tweet, you said he was around the ball a lot. Like, what's the context behind that? Like, there are no one-on-ones, so it wasn't that. You're talking about 7-on-7.
So like 7-on-7 team, like he made plays on the ball, right? Like he, well, one thing, okay. So when you're watching a young corner, like, and if a guy has a physical ability, it's easy to go one-on-ones. A guy could look great, right?
Yeah.
But then when you get into team and stuff, especially because there's coverages, there's calls, like, things get adjusted, and someone might look good, like flipping his hips and going down the field, running with a guy, but is he like passing off other players and then adjusting and then to what's going into and picking up, right?
Yeah.
And he was doing that at a level that wasn't very typical of a freshman. And frankly, that's kind of some of the stuff that Jaden Mickey he kind of has that too. And when you have two corners that are that young doing that kind of stuff, and so he did. So Morrison had a play today where there was an in against Joe Wilkins. Joe Wilkins took part in 7-on-7 today, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah, so that's good. This is what I think that they've done with some of these guys is, so, I mean, biggest news today in terms of defensive wise, Maris Leofeld was in gear and everything. He did nothing today. He just was at the beginning of practice doing, in some individual stuff. And they did some like walkthrough stuff that he was like clearly the starter. So it wasn't like, oh, he's not. He just they were probably because they scrimmaged yesterday and they were like, we don't need to do anything. Right.
Yeah.
So like Colley only 7 on, right? So they're easing him back because he was hurt, right? Wilkins only did 7 on. I think Kane Barong, I believe he's only been doing 7 on, and then he just started doing like 11-on-11 stuff for like the first time. So, and I think today might have been the first time, or maybe the scrimmage or whatever, right? So that's kind of how they've chosen to like manage some of these guys' load, I guess, right? And it makes sense, right? So, and then obviously too, there's a lot less like physicality in 7-on than there is in team and stuff. But yeah, anyways, Mickey, stride for stride on it in, broke up a pass against Joe Wilkins there. He broke off something and closed in a hurry on this little check down to Logan Diggs and got like a little too aggressive and actually kind of tackled him, which wasn't great. And Diggs threw the ball in Morrison's face, and I don't blame him. But yeah, like nothing else happened, whatever. It's football, whatever, right? But yeah, it was a good play. Like it's one of those plays where, Marcus Freeman probably has to get mad at him because whatever, but then secretly he's probably like, yeah, that's what I like.
That's a good, right? That's a good, yeah, it looks good.
Yeah. And like another play where, there was this boot play and basically it was designed to go this little like leak out to the tight end, and Burnham did a tremendous job actually kind of holding up the tight end and then breaking off and getting pressure. And then nothing was there. And then it was kind of like a throwaway, like Pine was just trying to like kind of get rid of it, whatever. And Morrison broke off his sink and almost picked it. It like went through his hands, like he tipped it or whatever, right? So, and just generally, whatever, he was on it. And that's the same thing with Snead, where you didn't see him. You saw him be around the ball a lot in terms of like, yeah, I mean, it's very hard to tell when it's a run game, when it's no pads, but just in coverage, you were like, oh, he's like really just boom, 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 boom. Like it's happening for him now. Right. So that was the thing with me. It was like Morrison, he looked like, oh, he gets it. He gets it. Yeah. And that's something that, I mean, for a lot of guys, some guys never get it, right? So, but guys getting it this early, that's a really good sign.
Right. So just to add some context to that too. So what Jamie's talking about when he says like there's a big deal in 7-on when you're communicating and then you can pass off, especially in zone, right? So a lot of times what these guys are, and I've seen it before, where like there are some guys who are straight up like one-on-one players. Like literally that's what they do in high school all the time. Like it's one-on-ones, like every camp you go to, you're doing one-on-ones and stuff. And then you put them in a football context, like of a game, and they're not as good because they don't have that communication and they don't have the understanding of like, okay, I'm passing off this in route and now I'm immediately looking back to the flat because there's a back coming out, right? Yeah. Like if you can do those things, like that is the type of thing that keeps you off the field, you know, like, yeah, it's like he looks good in one-on-ones and he looks good in like individual and stuff. But then when we try to put him in a game, he doesn't understand the concept of the entire defense, right? And where his eyes are supposed to be. And if you can do that early, that's how you get into a game. Like that's how you bridge the gap, right? Like we always talk about coaches' trust. The coaches, and not just the coaches, but the players too. Your teammates out there have to know, like, okay, if he's going to pass someone off to me, but then he's going to get to his responsibility. And that's how it gets done, right? And we've always talked about ball production is a huge indicator in practice. Like, because if you can't do it in practice,
you're not doing it in the game.
Because that's their best guys, right? Like if you're going against your own best guys, right? And you have ball production, then like you don't get to take reps against the 2s and 3s in the football game, right? Yeah. Because no one does that, right? So you have to be able to do it against the top group. That's why I'm asking you about like the context for like who he's going against, right? Like if they're doing this against Joe Wilkins, and this is another like kind of issue with Notre Dame's receiver situation, right? It's one thing to do it against Joe Wilkins, like, but like, is Joe Wilkins starting for Ohio State? No, he's not. Like none of the teams, like, but he's a top line player for Notre Dame. Right, so it's not like it's nothing. It's
but
like
he'd start for a lot of guys, a lot of other teams on Notre Dame's schedule, and so it's a different ball game when you're going against Josh Downs or whoever, right, or Jackson Smith the Giant or whatever, right? It is, but if you're not doing that against Joe Wilkins, ain't no way in heck you're ever doing it against those guys, right? So that's kind of like where you're at. And I mean, Joe Wilkins had a nice little comeback route on Morrison earlier too, right? So it's not like he didn't get any, right? But I'm just saying
he's not a bum. He's a good player.
Yeah, no, he's not a bum, right? Player. And also too, he's just coming back and all that too. But just it also the fact that Morrison and Mickey are clearly like too deep. You know, they're clearly above Tucker and Barnes. And Riley, like those guys were running with 3s. Barnes worked in a little bit with 2s. I think Matt said he saw Tucker work in a little bit. I don't remember seeing him with the 2s, but like those guys came out with the 2s every time to start. And
I mean, that's news. I mean,
it's significant.
That's a big deal. Like that is
significant.
That is a very big deal.
Yeah. And Barnes actually got some work at safety today, which I hadn't seen. And he did some work with the 3s at safety. And then at safety with the starters, they mixed those 4 guys. Like it's still it's a competition. You know what I mean? Like it's there. Like I think all 4 guys will play. You know, I think that's the way that it's going. Yeah, I would be surprised if all 4 guys didn't play.
All right, I'm gonna address this real quick. Don't do that, okay? What we said about Joe Wilkins is that if he was healthy and playing, he would be a good player for Notre Dame. That's what we said. We didn't think he would be back until October, and we felt by that time he will have been too far gone from competing with the wide receivers, and the team will have moved on. Don't tell me that. Like, don't tell me I don't think Joe Wilkins is a good player. I said last year that I think Joe Wilkins is going to be the surprise player on this football team. So don't, okay?
Joe Wilkins can play.
He can play. Like, I'm not, like, don't say things I didn't say. Get it right. We did not think he would be healthy. And we did say if he was going to be healthy, he would be a good player and he would be a starter for Notre Dame. So please don't, okay?
And he's made plays on Saturdays. Like he's made plays on Saturdays.
Like,
right? Like
I
don't. Terry's got it twisted. That was not what was.
Like that's not what was said. I have been a Joe Wilkins supporter. Please don't.
That was not what was said. Like whatever. Like whatever. Like if anything, too, Joe Wilkins, especially in practices, has like. It's almost like I kind of thought that he would have. Up to this point would have had a better career at Notre Dame because he was like making plays in practice as a freshman, and was doing things that like almost like when he had that one, the Duke game where he was getting, he had a couple big first down catches. That was like kind of more of what you expected him to be. It's just, and then, I mean, obviously injuries have played a part in it too.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to the DBs real quick. So, all right, the corners, the news that the 2 freshmen are in the 2 deep is I think is a very big deal. That's pretty significant, in my opinion. Let's talk about the safeties, right? What was the situation there for you?
So yeah, like I said, they were rotating all those 4 guys, right? So they were rotating all those 4 guys. It wasn't like, I mean, like Joseph was with the 2s on a lot of reps. So read into what you may. Obviously, he's going to be a starter, right? But they're giving all those guys chances. That means it's like close enough that they're trying to get a look at all those guys. I will say they were doing some stuff earlier in some package stuff where they were just kind of like a little bit of a walkthrough kind of earlier in the practice where they were going like a 3 safety look and they were playing Brown and Griffith as the deep guys. And then they had either Joseph or Henderson as the overhang kind of player, as essentially the nickel defender in those things too. So that was interesting. And I mean, I think could see both those guys kind of thriving in that stuff, especially blitz wise. Yeah, and then sorry, throw up that David Stanton's thing right there because I should mention, like, Justin Walters didn't. I mean, it's kind of obvious there's that cutoff, right? Those are the 4 guys, and maybe X Watts would have got in there too if he wasn't working on offense today. He made a really big catch in against Philip Riley where he just like stole it away from him, which was nice, and did some other things well. Had a couple nice plays. But Walters, I mean, when Walters is out there, I notice him in a good way. But for whatever reason, I mean, obviously we're not at every practice. We can't evaluate every little thing. He's behind those guys and he's with essentially working with the 3s. So, I mean, I like maybe if there's an injury or something, he'll crack and move up the lineup a little bit. But I would say as of right now, haven't really seen anything or heard anything to indicate that he's going to be in the mix.
So when I hear you, so the way I just heard you describe that, it sounds to me like Henderson and Joseph are playing the same spot.
Well, in that package. That's not that's not like base, right? So I mean, And basically how they're playing it, it's pretty interchangeable within the defense. They're not kind of like, it's not as, they're kind of flipping responsibilities quite a bit. And it's kind of like what they're doing with the corners where there isn't like chasing to the other side, like boundary field. They were playing left and right. And so I think it's more of that.
Okay. I'm a little worried about that whole situation. You know that I am. Okay. We'll see. You have said before, like, don't try not to read too much into the depth, the start, and especially
I also too, I would say, because they didn't do much in this. They weren't showing us much in this thing. So I'm not going to read too much into what they're doing. Like Maris and Colley, like, I think Maris obviously is going to play a ton. I think Colley's going to play a lot too.
Right.
I mean, he worked in with the ones in 7-on. So, that's something. So I think, if you're basing it on that, like, those are two guys who are going to play big roles in the defenses here who weren't in there. And so, like, technically Nolan Ziegler was with the twos today. He's not going to be with the twos during the season. Like, unless there's injuries or something like that. Right. So, and eventually they're going to have to choose between a Bauer and a Bertrand. Right. And it is noticeable too, that when they were doing that sub package thing, it was Bertrand in with Marist at linebacker and not Bauer. And Bauer's been the linebacker when they've run sub package stuff the last couple of years.
What about that sub package thing? You referenced it a couple of times. What?
Yeah, it's just them playing 3 down, essentially 4-2-5 personnel, but they're playing 3 down. They're playing 3 safeties. Yeah. So, Foskey, people will be excited about this. No, they're not going to be excited. He's off the ball. So,
it's the dollar.
It's essentially the dollar. But different than what they did last year, because last year they played 4-3 personnel and did it. And this is 4-2-5, but it's not the 4-2-5 with Bracey as the nickel. Maybe they'll do some of that with Bracey as the nickel too. I'm undetermined, right? Didn't see it today, but whatever. Maybe they'll do some of that too. But they did it with Henderson or Joseph as that overhang. So Maris overhang on one side, Henderson the overhang on the other side, Bertrand off the ball, inside backer. Essentially, I think they're would move around Foskey. I think that's what they would do. They would end up moving him all around. But he was just basically like off the ball in the box in this, and they weren't doing any blitzing.
Right.
There was like run fits is what they were basically working on during that thing. But it was notable that they did that, because that was obviously a big flip from what they did last year, where they would have, they keep the 3 linebackers out there. And then it would be like Kaiser would be one overhang player and Bertrand with the other. Well, it's a bit different when it's Marist and Joseph or Henderson, right? That's quite a big change.
Yeah. All right. He made a comment. We can move over to the offense here. Estimate will be the leading rusher in the OSU game. Mark it down. Okay. Based on what you saw, is that in play?
I couldn't tell you from today. It wasn't like a thing. Hearing lots of good stuff about him in camp, and they were raving about, how he looks and stuff. But in a non-padded practice, it's not Audric Estemi time. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not really that kind of time for him. I thought all the backs looked, the 3 primary guys, Tyree, Diggs, and Estemi all look good. But you can't really judge anything based on today. So
tell me about Javon Payne.
I didn't watch the offense as much, so I didn't focus on him as much. So I didn't get a ton of views of him today and notice him a lot. but I mean, I certainly look like an athlete. Like I just didn't see like how like what role he would kind of have. I mean, certainly he didn't stand out in a way that like if JD Price was there, he would have stood up. You know what I mean? Like,
gotcha.
Yeah.
That's I mean, that kind of tells it. All right. I think you guys saw a little bit of special teams. Do you think Mickey should do punt return, get him involved? I'm nervous about having our All-American safety returning punts.
I don't think there's anything wrong with him returning punts. It's like, it's not something where like a lot of guys get injured.
I mean, Kyron did it last year.
You have Kyle Hamilton was playing gunner and something. Like they've done different things where starters are going to play on some of these teams. Like Logan Gilman was very featured on special teams when he was a guy. And I think Vosky, I would imagine he's going to still be in a punt block, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be there. And I mean, it's important part of the game. You're going to do it. So I don't know. I wouldn't worry about it if he's the guy. Brian Mason did say after the practice that basically him and Salerno are even.
Yeah,
how he kind of views it. So, I mean, we'll see what happens, but I think there's probably more of a threat with Joseph as the punt returner. So, I mean, we'll see. But Salerno, you know what? I kind of like what I saw from Salerno today. So I don't know. We'll see.
4.55. I mean, that's 4.55 40. Not slow. No, it is not. No. It is definitely not. So the thing about Brandon Joseph returning punts is sometimes they like a defender to do it because they're already out there. You just send them back out, right? So there's no like, it's you like to have a defender just generally because they still like the punt team still starts with the ball. Like there could be a fake and all those other things. They like to have a defender out there, and like it's probably one of those things. Like if it's just going to be like if they have like a long drive, not like a long drive, but like to the 50. Then okay, maybe you'll send out Salerno. But if like there's a 3 and out or something, and Brandon Joseph isn't tired at that point, so maybe you just keep him out there and see what you can get. So it's probably situational.
Yeah, and I would say too, the other way to look at it is that like you're already thin at receiver. You're gonna, even if it's a small rep and it might just be a fair catch, you're probably gonna save those guys as much as possible.
Yeah, I love this. This is great. Are we ready for the angst and speculation from the fan base that Ohio State will fire Ryan Day and lure Freeman away, doubling his salary? Like I love the jump ahead. Like okay, we have now defeated Ohio State, and now the angst and the tension is going to be: are we going to lose our head coach? I love it. I love the. It's just
that would be the play, but I have a feeling though that. Freeman would not be the first choice for them as alums because Ohio State is a very unique situation where they have 2 alums that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That
Fickle.
I think Luke Fickle would be the guy that they want. First and foremost, obviously Freeman's ex-boss. So, but that would be hilarious. I mean, I would.
It's just
there will be plenty of message board posts about it.
Like. Is Marcus Freeman too good? My column, it's just it's such a Notre Dame thing. I just really
he's just too good looking to be a head coach.
He's too good. Is Marcus Freeman too good for Notre Dame's benefit? I love it. Okay, David Solomon. Let's see it, Jamie. Was it you weren't watching the offense. Did Tobias Merriweather jump out to you today in some kind of way?
Not really. I mean, he looked good running and stuff like that, but like, I mean, the one target that came his way that I noticed, I mean, he dropped it, and like, so it wasn't good. I mean, it was great. It was a great throw by Pine too. Fit it into a window on and out and went right through his hands. Like it was not a good, and like Stuckey got on him, right? But one good thing that you would say is that Lindsey was really like very positive, being like, you got it, don't worry, like And that's something that I don't remember if I've ever really seen Braden Lindsay kind of be the veteran guy kind of pulling the young kid aside.
I mean, he's got to, right?
Like he's got to, right? He's got to, yeah. So that was good to see. And I mean, I'm not judging Tobias Merriweather off of the one play or whatever, but I'm just saying out of today, it wasn't like, because Jaden Thomas still wasn't practicing, and it wasn't like Tobias Merriweather didn't light the world on fire today. That's not for sure. So I mean, based on today, I mean, I don't think. I mean, even if you were going to say based on today, like Lorenzo Styles, I think he had like one target today, right? But that was just kind of more of like they really didn't do much with the ones today. Yeah.
What I was thinking, I think going into today, actually, it had occurred to me that this is practice 13, so they're a little over halfway through, and he's probably hitting a wall right around now, because not just the fact that he's a freshman and freshmen hit the wall all the time. But like he's probably not meant to be counted on like this. That's just from like a mental standpoint. Like it's very difficult to go from high school. It's good, however good you are. It's very difficult to go from high school to I'm counted on at the school that's ranked number 5 in the country in camp.
I gotta go to Ohio State and I gotta score 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, like it's just hard. You can't. It's very difficult to keep that consistent.
Just with most players, everybody thinks that improvement it's all like this and it's
linear,
like rise up, but it's not. It's not. There's a lot of this and whatever, and sometimes you go up and then back to like it's not something. It's not always smooth. It can be a roller coaster, especially as a freshman. It's maybe in a second year kind of thing, it is a lot more linear, but in the first year, it's not always going to be linear for guys. So, I mean, I'm not going to say Tobias Merriweather isn't going to be a contributor this year, because I think he might have to be just based on kind of depth and all that kind of stuff. But if you're counting on him to be like, essentially wide receiver 1A, I mean, I think you're counting on too much. That's a little bit too much to put on him.
Yeah, like it's just difficult, right? And like everyone remembers Kyle Hamilton, right? Well, he got to sit behind Alohi Gilman and Jalen Elliott, right? Like those are 2 captains. And if those guys weren't there, he would have started. It's not like he wouldn't have. But
he would have for sure.
Right, of course.
Under any other team that didn't have 2 guys that were multi-year starters, he would have started. And I'm not saying this as part of like Greg's thing with Kyle Hamilton. Kyle Hamilton came in and it was so obvious that he was like all caps elite right away. Like he had like 1,000 interceptions in camp.
Right.
Right. Like he just made so many plays that it was just undeniable. His talent was undeniable. That there was just no way he wasn't going to play and be involved and like be a big factor as a freshman. And I mean, I just don't, there's just very few guys that come in and look like that. Right. It's like what Culley said in the thing. Everybody's miserable unless you're Kyle Hamilton, because he came in and he was like the dude right away.
But even the point that I'm making too is like there would have been mistakes if he was on field for 900 snaps.
He did have some mistakes
right.
in that first year. And it got better and better. Yeah.
And in camp, he'd still hit a wall at that point. Like they had talked about it. It's like, it's kind of leveled off a little bit. He's getting tired.
Yeah.
And it's
only 2 interceptions today, not 17.
Yeah. Like, hey, look what I say though. Ball production, right? Like it's a big indicator.
It is. Yeah.
So okay. Tell me, I guess, was there anything about the offense that kind of jumped to you today? Like, I mean, I guess anything about like Buckner. Let's talk about Buckner. He's kind of the elephant in the room.
Honestly, would love to just rave about Buckner right now. They didn't let him throw the ball further than 10 yards down the field. They just didn't.
Cool.
They didn't. He made a great throw on a slant on a play action. I believe it was a play action to Lindsay, where he hit him right in stride, and Lindsay beat the press of Cam Hart, and it was like a pretty play. That was nice. Yeah. He made a couple of good decisions. Whatever, he scrambled on one play that would have been a big play, but it wasn't, anything like they didn't give him an opportunity to be a star today. And I don't think that was the point, and they don't want to give too much away anyways, but like, they did not with the ones where like I heard someone say like, oh, Michael Mayer was great today. I mean, not that Michael Mayer's not great every day, but it was like, they barely threw him the ball. Like, it wasn't like I'm going to guess it was probably one of Michael Mayer's least impactful practices he's ever had at Notre Dame because they're not showing him anything. They lined him on the boundary a couple of times, made one nice catch, but like they weren't doing some of the stuff. I mean, I've seen plenty of other practices where he was like, oh my God, he's unstoppable, but this was not one of those days. So they just didn't show a lot. So it was tough to say.
All right, I'm going to keep up on the offense, but I thought this was a good question. Where would you set the line if Notre Dame's Week 1 2022 team played Notre Dame's Week 1 2021 team?
I'd give the 2022 team, I'd probably get it like, I'd make it like -7. Like I give him a touchdown.
You give him a touchdown?
I'd give
because of the line difference?
I think the lines are better. Both lines are better. The depth is better there. And you get a year better worth of Michael Mayer. I think, I just think, and then you have the linebackers are going to be better. I think defensive back wise, even though you're missing Kyle Hamilton, just as a group, that group is better. So I think the defense is better. I think it's just all in all, it's a better team.
Yeah. So I wasn't thinking like, I was thinking 5.5. So Westwood Manor Mill says 3.5. Like I was thinking 5.5. Like a full touchdown is.
I think it's a touchdown, in my opinion.
That's. I mean, you've seen him, so that's fine.
I just would. My one thing would be like, I think Jack Cohn, as much as people wanted to for all his faults or whatever, I think you'd feel a lot more comfortable just going in with Jack Cohn in a game right now than you would Buckner, just because you haven't seen Buckner enough of it. But I mean, if Buckner is the guy hitting on all cylinders, then I mean, forget it. Make it 10 points or whatever, if that was the case. So I don't know, but you know what? 7 is probably, you're right. 5.5 probably, because you got to say the Kyle Hamilton factor, the Kyron Williams factor.
Yeah.
And that's probably what, but I think overall as a team, the team's better.
Cool. All right. That was a good question. I appreciate
that was a good question.
Thank you. So tell me about Jaden Thomas, because I was thinking today, everyone is kind of fired up about Jaden Thomas. Everyone says he looks good. That's not really based on anything that anyone has seen.
They saw that clip, Greg. They saw the clip. He scored the touchdown.
He did.
One touchdown.
It did. There was the clip.
Here.
This is what happens. Like, look, Notre Dame gives me one little thing, and it's like, okay, it's gospel. No, but seriously, like it's all been like things that we've heard.
It's been positive.
It's all things that we've heard, and I don't. It's not that I think anyone's lying or whatever. It's just that it's not based on anything that anyone has seen, right? So
yes.
Was there anything today? Like, again, I'm gonna have to get Drew on the show next week.
Well, he didn't practice today, right?
He did not.
I mean, I didn't see him. Like
I know he went in to practice. Maybe he just didn't do it.
He was there and whatever, but like I didn't see him do. I think I saw him. I'm pretty sure I saw him without a helmet. So like, I don't think he did anything today. Like, I don't think they. I think they're still just whatever working on, like they're not pushing the hamstring. So
right. And maybe he's like.
I mean, Drew can whatever. Maybe Drew can. Can correct me if I'm wrong or whatever. But I didn't see him. So there was So that's another thing, right? And I don't want to harp on like we don't get those access, but it's like one of these kind of things where because it's so unknown about a guy like Jaden Thomas. So like, let's say Jaden Thomas, I assume he's going to be healthy for Ohio State or whatever, right? Let's just say like in a normal game, let's just say he has 3 catches for 36 yards in that game, right? Mm-hmm. And definitely like you're like, oh, okay, but definitely nothing to get excited about, right? If he has that kind of day and he's like a starter or a guy who plays, right? Nothing to like get you hyped from the season, which is like pretty normal for like a receiver to have. And this is the other open practice and we don't see him. So everything we go off of is based on like them saying, oh, Jaden Thomas is looking nice, or we're hearing he's looking nice. And then the narrative is like, oh yeah, well, you know, that was camp or whatever. This is that. And you don't get to see that. So it's like, there will be people complaining about him unfairly, right? But there will be people complaining about like, thought we said that Jaden Thomas was going to be a playmaker this year, whatever, if he doesn't have a good first game or something because of that. And that's why I'm like, it's, you know, good. It's good vibes right now, other than obviously the injury situation and then the Keelan Keeley thing or whatever. But just overall with Marcus Freeman, it's good vibes around the program, good vibes on recruiting overall, good vibes of like, you know, you like the team. We just said we like the team's better than the last year's team. They won 11 games last year, right? So there's good vibes around the team, you know, and if they're healthy and all that, then you're feeling really good, right? At the same time, there's still a lot of unknowns. So the good vibes can go away quick if they lose a game that they're projected to lose, right? They're being predicted. They're a 2-touchdown dog in the game, right? So it's like you're kind of, and then it'll take a while before you get to play like a BYU or North Carolina is kind of like the next games that are kind of like teams that people will think are pretty good, right? So it kind of takes a while to kind of get back that goodwill almost, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting, like in that way too, because I think you kind of want to build up the goodwill a little bit. And I mean, I don't even think this is like a Marcus Freeman decision or whatever. I'm just saying in general, this is when you don't have this and you don't give that, you know, less about the team. And then it's just the fans, especially the fans who are like crazy about the team, who subscribe to our site, and I love them, whatever, but they are like waiting for the practice report and they're waiting for this and they're just on every little thing. And then when things don't go right, or it's just like, I mean, I don't know, like the first game could be a game where some guy just stinks up the joint and then you just like, well, that's that. I guess that guy sucks. And it's like, well, he doesn't suck, but people are just going to overreact to the first game. And that's just, I mean, that's just what I kind of worry about with a lot of this stuff. Yeah. So in kind of bringing it back to Jaden Thomas, like, man, I wish I would have loved to see more of him, but we just didn't get to see it today.
Right. So it's a good point, right? Like if Jaden Thomas catches, like, let's just say Jaden Thomas catches 20 balls for 300 yards, right? He didn't catch anything last year, you know, like, yeah, he didn't get 20 catches for 300 yards, like scores 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns, whatever. Like he did not play at all. Right. But it would be seen as a disappointment because of the way he's been kind of talked about and hyped up and that sort of thing. And your overall point of we really do not know anything about this team. We really don't. I mean, just in terms of like the way they're coming together, the way they're coming together, like the way they're gelling, like the wide receivers especially, like that is one position where we are really. Like Tobias Merriweather too. Like that's another one where it's like even me, like I've kind of fallen prey to this as well, where it's like there's been enough talk to where it's like I feel like he's going to be a real player, but if he caught 20 passes for 300 yards, like that would be a good freshman season, right? Like most freshmen, if they do that, you're going to be saying, all right, like, but that's usually like if he's the 4th or 5th guy, not like the 2nd or 3rd guy. You know, so it's very difficult to get a read on this team. because, it's obviously by design, right?
Yeah.
The coaches don't want Marcus, I don't want to say coaches. Marcus Freeman does not want a lot of information out there, and that's his right? Like, that's understandable, I guess. Like, I don't like it personally, but
no one will care if they go out and ball out.
Right. If they go out and win,
no one will care.
It's no problem, right? And so, like,
but if they don't, I'm just telling you, the pitchforks will be out,
and the pitchforks will be out. That's true. And if they don't win, like, it is what it is. It's not because if they don't win the game, it's not because they didn't open practices for.
Nothing to do.
Like, that's not it.
It has no impact on how good the team is. No.
Right. Yeah. So, like, it's just our own information, right? And being able to give an accurate kind of like or not even accurate, like a in good faith, like, this is what I think about the team, right? Because we don't know. Like, so, like, today is all about lineups. Like, I think the Jaden Mickey, Benjamin Morrison stuff, like, that is, like, I think a big thing. And as far as everything else, like, we know Andrew Kostovic, he was in at left guard. I mean, what did you see from Rocco Spindler? Like, was he repping, like, he did 2.5? Was he working with the twos? Like, what did you see from there?
I didn't see if he was working it. I only saw Kostovic with the ones when I was watching.
Okay.
So he was working.
And that makes the most sense.
Yeah. If he was working in with them, I didn't see it. I mean, again, I will say with the ones, I didn't think the like offensive line looked bad or anything like that today. I mean, it's impossible to tell really without the pads and all that stuff too. But I will say that, I mean, Harry Easton wasn't treating it like, hey guys, it's an easy day. He like led into the starting offensive line separately from the rest of the team. Like, he brought them over while like threes were going to. So, I mean, and that's pretty typical of, like, he holds his guys to a very high standard. So there obviously was some stuff that he didn't like. It wasn't like he wasn't singling out anyone. It was like he was singling out the group, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think they're going to be a good group, but and the one thing at least is that Kostovic, that he can play. There's a baseline that he can play at, and he played last year. So if Jared Patterson doesn't play against Ohio State or however long, and today, it was. It might be a foot sprain. It looked like a pretty significant foot sprain just based on what you just move around today, or not really.
It's like the whole leg is wrapped up and he's on like one of those like
so
crutches things.
Yeah. So it was quite the foot sprain. But yeah, I think I think they'll be fine, but it's obviously when you're losing someone like Patterson, there's going to be a drop off no matter what.
Yep. Question for Jamie: do you think Kostovic would make a big jump from last year from the technical coaching of Harry Easton?
I mean, probably. I think Easton, is extremely like nails the details. Then again, I think there's some guys who really thrive under the style of Harry Easton, and we've seen it. And there's been guys who've gone into the league and like obviously are having successful careers in the league. And there's some guys that don't respond as well, and they don't thrive under it. So I personally don't know if Kostovic's going to be one of those guys or not. If he does respond in the right way, then Kostovic's going to probably play in the NFL and be like pretty thankful for it. So I think, there's I think the odds are that one of him or Rocco, one of those guys will be the right guy there.
I think playing too, like that's such a big deal. Like just going out there and playing and then you reevaluate yourself and you enter the next season with this totally different mindset, right? Of like, I've now played in big games, important games. I started in a Fiesta Bowl, like that makes
road game of Blacksburg.
Yeah. That makes such a big difference for a player. And obviously, and then there's also the technical aspect, right? Like technical, stronger, right? Getting better in the weight room and that sort of thing. So I think that's like a very important part of like the process for any player, but especially offensive linemen. Yeah, I mean, with our line, if Buckner keeps turnovers down, and we don't mean book-esque and just managing the team, want him to let it rip, we're going to be special. Yeah, I mean, I think like turnovers are important for any team, right? And you don't want to be reckless, right? Like there's a balance, obviously, between like Ian Book being very careful and like Everett Golson in 2014, right, where it's just kind of like way out of control. And I think that a lot of that comes down to decision making, right? Like Everett he made a lot of poor decisions, especially at the end of 2014. And frankly, that had a lot to do with like that particular team and the way it was kind of going. And Brian Kelly was very open about the fact that like we have to score 35 plus points to win because our defense isn't very good.
Yeah.
And so I think that whole team and that vibe was like, we got to take a lot of chances.
I think Greg froze here, so I'll just unless he is able to jump back in, I'll just kind of build on that. Yeah, I think like the one thing with Buckner, obviously, you don't want anyone to turn the ball over. I think it's more about like how he connects with those receivers, and if it's predicated on like, is he still the same explosive running dual threat guy that he was before? Is he able to like build something with Mayer to the point where Mayer is the exact same, type of production that he had before? Is like Lorenzo Styles going to make that jump to that like wide receiver one that many are hoping him to be? And all that kind of stuff matters, because if you look at, say, like that 2019 team, which had the great season from Chase Claypool, and then when Kmet got healthy, obviously he came back for that Georgia game. Okay, Greg's back.
I'm back. This is what happened. Poot entered the chat. Poot entered the chat,
everything blew up.
And everything just got destroyed. Look what happened.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Yeah. But I was just saying, looking back at that 2019 team, and you had the offense was good, but it was missing something from being really great, because it had the one great wideout in Chase Claypool. It didn't really have like Chris Fink was the number 2, but he
was hurt that year too. He had like knee injuries and stuff.
And they didn't have a number 3 guy, really, right? There wasn't a guy who was like they could count on. Lindsey became kind of like this gadget guy who was valuable later on, but he wasn't really like a guy they could count on in any sense. And they didn't have anybody else really to count on other than Kmet. And Kmet was obviously a great tight end, but that's kind of like where. So that's the long way of saying Buckner's got to be this guy and whatever, and he's got to protect the ball. But there's a lot of like questions where it's like, Mayer, we know is going to be great. Well, how many receivers are going to be great? Because if they're not there, like there's limits on what the offense can do, right? So is Tyree going to be the kind of like Kyron in as a receiver that you kind of hoped he can be, and all that kind of stuff, right? So all that kind of stuff matters, and that's really what's going to determine the ceiling for the offense.
Pops is funny. I got banned from On3 message board for asking why we didn't just take Malik Elzy instead of waiting and losing Hannafin, and the board went crazy on me.
Did that really happen, Pops? Wow.
Yeah, is that true? This is what I would say to that is I eventually I got to make this video of Tayshaun Lyons. I think he's really good. I like Tayshaun Lyons a lot. If they ended up taking him, honestly, I would like him over Malik Elzy. I think Malik Elzy is a good player, but I like Tayshaun Lyons a lot. I think he's a really good route runner and everything. So, yeah. What's your take on that?
Well, I liked Malik Elzy, but I think you're like taking like another big guy who is not on the level of like some other guys they already have in the class. And I will say that I think Elzy and Hannafin, it was a similar type of deal where they didn't really want to be like the fourth guy in the class.
Yeah.
And I think that came down a lot to it. So that's why Pops, man, you got to, is Pops McGee your handle on ISD?
Yeah. And, if you're not on ISD, then I don't know.
Like that's your first problem. Like, get on ISD.
Don't come to ISD complaining about on3 message boards. That's not our jam, man. I love Lions. Like, I really do. Look, we both without talking to each other, comped him to Chris Olave. So, I don't know what you want to say.
Yeah, I
think he's got like Kevin Stephenson vibes, traits, and all that stuff. So, I think he's a good prospect. If Notre Dame lands him, I think they got a good one, especially the fourth in the class. So, all right, Jamie, I think we've kind of covered everything. Any last thoughts about the open practice today?
I guess lastly, I'll just say like it's like there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to see that you didn't get the chance to see. But at the same time, like I still weirdly feel confident about like I don't feel like, oh, like Maris Leopold didn't practice today. Like, oh, I really wanted to see what we could do. It's like, he's a baller. Like if he's healthy for the first game, he's going to be good. He's going to be a really, really good player for Notre Dame. Like, I think Culley's going to be a guy who helps Notre Dame. Like, I didn't need to see that. Like Thomas, I think there's a little bit more of an unknown there. And I think on offense, there's a little bit more of an unknown, but I'm also at the same time, I'm confident Notre Dame's going to be able to run the ball and do it pretty well. So, I don't know. I mean, if anything, it builds up the anticipation and excitement for the season. So I'm ready to go.
Okay. Well, hopefully, but on the next time we talk, you can process this, and then you'll be ready to declare that Notre Dame is going to upset Ohio State in the Horseshoe on September 3rd, because that's what we're all waiting for. And I think
just waiting for that prediction. Yeah,
just waiting for. I'm ready to go. So, all right, we're gonna end the show there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If this is your first time, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Thank you for all the nice comments in the chat. We had a good time. I'm going to be working on, I think I'm going to have to talk to Drew Mantalk, because he was there with the offense and everything. Get his views on the team there. We haven't had him on the show yet, so that will be a fun thing. Get someone else on the show. So here's the thing, Travis. These hats, you know what? You need to go to this is on, and I'm dead serious. You need to go to the message board and say, you need to wrangle up like 6 or 7 other people, or like 10, like for Rick Kimball to make the hats, because he's not going to make like 3, right? Like if he's going to make a bunch, he's going to make a bunch. So if you want one, you need to build up like a big kind of like a bunch of people who want it, and tell them there. That's how I'll get it done. So that's my advice to you. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will talk to you very soon. Remember, go to irisportsdaily.com. There's practice reports, practice video, and all those things. So once again, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We will talk to you very, very soon.